Never fall asleep repeating the sentence, "Nothing ever works out for me." That sentence may seem harmless when you are tired. It may feel like a simple confession after a difficult day. You lie in bed, your body exhausted, your mind still full of unfinished conversations, unpaid bills, old fears, future worries, and emotions you had no time to feel. Then, almost without noticing, you begin to speak to yourself in the language of defeat. Nothing works for me. I am always alone. People always leave. Money never stays. Something bad is going to happen. I cannot take this anymore. You may believe these are only thoughts. You may believe they disappear when you close your eyes. But the psyche is not indifferent to the words you repeat with emotion, especially in the quiet threshold before sleep. In that moment, the conscious mind begins to loosen its grip. The noise of the outer world becomes weaker. The deeper layers of the unconscious become more receptive, more open, more impressionable. This does not mean that a sentence magically creates your future. It means that repeated emotional language shapes the way you perceive, interpret, expect, and respond to life. A woman who falls asleep saying, "I am not safe," wakes up inside a body that is rehearsed danger. A woman who falls asleep saying, "No one loves me," may begin the next day already searching for proof of abandonment. A woman who falls asleep saying, "Everything goes wrong," trains her attention to notice threat before possibility. Her words may not command the universe like a machine, but they do command the atmosphere of her own inner world. And the inner world is where reality is first interpreted. This is why the final conversation you have with yourself before sleep matters. Not because you must force yourself to be positive, not because pain should be denied, not because fear is forbidden, but because the soul should not be sent into the night carrying only the language of hopelessness. The unconscious listens not only to what you say, but to the emotional pattern beneath what you say. If the last message you give yourself is despair, the psyche may spend the night deepening that familiar pathway. A thought repeated with emotion becomes more than a thought. It becomes a groove. A groove becomes a tendency. A tendency becomes the way you meet your life. So tonight, before you sleep, I want you to become more careful with the words you leave at the doorway of your unconscious. Before we go deeper, if this message touches something in you, subscribe to this channel. Here, we explore the feminine psyche, anxiety, the shadow, and the journey back to yourself. Now let us speak with precision. Conscious co-creation is not pretending that pain does not exist. It is not repeating beautiful phrases while your body is breaking inside. It is not spiritual denial. It is not the childish belief that if you never say a negative sentence, nothing difficult will happen to you. Life will still bring uncertainty. People may still disappoint you. Money may still require responsibility. Love may still ask maturity from you. The body may still carry fatigue. The world may still be unpredictable. But conscious co-creation begins when you stop using your own voice to deepen the prison of fear. It begins when you realize that your inner language is not neutral. The words you repeat become instructions to your attention. They teach the body what to expect. They teach the nervous system where to place its vigilance. They teach the unconscious what story to keep rehearsing when you are not paying attention. In my work with the psyche, I would not ask a woman to silence her pain. I would ask her to speak to it differently. There is a great difference between saying, "I am afraid," and saying, "Something terrible will happen." The first sentence recognizes an emotion. The second turns emotion into prophecy. There is a difference between saying, "I feel lonely tonight," and saying, "No one will ever love me." The first sentence opens a door for compassion. The second locks the soul inside an identity. There is a difference between saying, "Today was difficult," and saying, "My life is always difficult." The first sentence belongs to a moment. The second tries to turn the moment into fate. The unconscious is especially vulnerable to this confusion. It does not always separate temporary emotion from permanent identity. If you repeat, "I am abandoned," it begins to organize perception around abandonment. If you repeat, "I never have enough," it begins to notice lack with greater intensity. If you repeat, "I cannot handle life," it weakens your sense of agency before the next challenge even arrives. Again, this is not magic. It is psychological conditioning. A woman's inner speech can become either a continuation of her wound or the beginning of her healing. Many women do not realize that the voice in their mind is not truly their own voice. It is often an inherited voice, a parent's fear, a family's scarcity, a former lover's criticism, a teacher's humiliation, a culture's pressure, a childhood atmosphere of danger. The words may now sound internal, but they were often planted through repetition long before the woman had enough consciousness to question them. This is why you must listen carefully to what you say before sleep. Ask yourself whose voice you are carrying into the night. When you say, "Nothing ever works out for me," is that truly the voice of your soul, or is it the voice of old disappointment? When you say, "I will always be alone," are you speaking truth, or are you repeating the child's terror of being left without comfort? When you say, "Money never stays with me," are you seeing reality clearly, or are you living through a family pattern of scarcity? When you say, "Something bad is going to happen," is intuition speaking, or is anxiety trying to protect you by rehearsing tragedy? The unconscious often confuses preparation with protection. An anxious mind believes that imagining the worst will make the worst easier to bear. It says, "If I expect pain, I will not be surprised by it." But this kind of rehearsal rarely creates safety. It creates exhaustion. The body begins living the fear before the event has happened. The nervous system pays the price of a future that may never arrive. A woman may spend her nights suffering tomorrow's sorrow. Then she wakes up already tired. This is why the phrase, "I am afraid something bad will happen," must be handled with tenderness and wisdom. You do not need to attack the fear. Fear becomes louder when it is shamed. Instead, you can translate it into a sentence that recognizes the emotion without surrendering your entire reality to it. Instead of saying, "Something bad is going to happen," you might say, "A part of me feels afraid tonight, but I do not need to live the pain before it arrives." Notice the difference. The fear is not denied, it is held. The body hears that it is safe enough to release the rehearsal. This is the essence of conscious co-creation. You do not lie to yourself. You speak in a way that allows the psyche to move toward a new possibility. A sentence before sleep should not be a performance. It should be believable enough for the body to receive it. If you say, "Everything is perfect," while your nervous system is in panic, the unconscious may reject the sentence. It may feel false. But if you say, "This day was hard, and I am allowed to rest now," the body may soften. The sentence contains truth and direction at the same time. That is the kind of language that heals. It does not erase pain. It gives pain a wiser place to land. Many women try to fight negative thoughts by pushing them away. They lie in bed and tell themselves not to think about fear, not to think about the relationship, not to think about money, not to think about the future, not to think about the painful conversation. But the psyche does not respond well to force. What is pushed away often returns with more intensity. The unconscious wants relationship, not violence. So when a negative thought appears before sleep, do not enter a battle with it. Translate it. Translation is different from suppression. Suppression says, "I must not think this." Translation says, "What is this fear trying to say, and how can I answer it from a deeper place?" If the thought says, "No one truly loves me," the deeper place may answer, "I am learning to recognize, receive, and choose love that is reciprocal." If the thought says, "Everyone leaves me," the deeper place may answer, "I no longer need to abandon myself in order to prevent someone else from leaving." If the thought says, "Money never stays with me," the deeper place may answer, "I am building a safer, wiser, and more conscious relationship with money." If the thought says, "Everything will go wrong," the deeper place may answer, "I can meet what comes without living the pain before it happens." If the thought says, "I cannot take this anymore," the deeper place may answer, "Today was difficult, but now I can rest and begin again with more consciousness." These are not empty affirmations. They are psychological reorientations. They take the raw material of fear and give it a new direction. They teach the unconscious that pain can be acknowledged without becoming identity. They invite the nervous system to step out of catastrophe and into presence. They allow the woman to remain honest without becoming imprisoned by the worst sentence available. This is important because the mind before sleep often returns to what is unresolved. The day ends and the defenses weaken. The phone is placed aside. The room grows dark. The body becomes still. Then everything you outran during the day begins to surface. The conversation you did not finish. The message you did not receive. The bill you do not know how to pay. The fear about your child, your future, your marriage, your body, your work, your age, your worth. What could not be processed in daylight appears at night. Night reveals the unconscious. That is why it must be approached with respect. Do not give the night only fear. Give it meaning. Give it language. Give it a sentence that can hold both truth and possibility. A woman who says, "I am tired and I am allowed to rest," is not denying her exhaustion. She is refusing to turn exhaustion into hopelessness. A woman who says, "I feel lonely and I am learning to return to myself," is not pretending loneliness is pleasant. She is refusing to make loneliness proof that she is unloved. A woman who says, "I do not know how everything will unfold, but I can take one conscious step tomorrow," is not controlling life. She is reclaiming her relationship with the unknown. The soul needs this kind of speech. It needs words that do not abandon the body. Too many women speak to themselves with the cruelty of those who once wounded them. They repeat inner sentences that no loving presence would say to a child. They call themselves failures, dramatic, too late, too damaged, too difficult, too behind, too emotional, too much, not enough. Then they wonder why anxiety follows them into sleep. The inner voice becomes the atmosphere of the psyche. If that atmosphere is full of threat, the body cannot rest deeply. It may sleep, but it does not surrender. It remains alert beneath the surface, as if danger is waiting at the edge of the bed. This is why some women wake up already tense, already carrying the emotional residue of thoughts they repeated before sleep. The night was not peaceful. It was only unconscious continuation. To change this, the woman must become the guardian of the threshold. The threshold is the space between waking and sleeping. It is a sacred psychological doorway. What you carry there has weight, not because every sentence manifests instantly, but because every repeated sentence participates in the architecture of your inner world. If you bring resentment to the threshold every night, resentment becomes familiar. If you bring fear, fear becomes rehearsed. If you bring gratitude, the nervous system learns to notice what still supports life. If you bring conscious language, the unconscious begins receiving a new pattern. This is not about forcing gratitude when you are in pain. Forced gratitude can become another mask. True gratitude is different. It is not the denial of suffering. It is the recognition that suffering is not the only thing present. Even on difficult days, there may be one breath, one lesson, one protection, one moment of beauty, one opportunity for repair, one truth seen more clearly, one small sign that life has not completely abandoned you. Before sleep, the soul does not need a perfect day. It needs a truthful ending. A truthful ending might sound like this. Today was heavy. I felt afraid. I did not handle everything perfectly, but I am here. I can rest. I can learn. I can begin again. This kind of sentence is powerful because it stops the old pattern of totalizing pain. Anxiety loves the word always. It loves never. It loves nothing, everything, everyone, no one. These words create emotional prisons. They take a temporary state and stretch it across the entire future. Nothing works. Everyone leaves. I always fail. I never receive. My life is only struggle. These sentences are rarely accurate. They are emotional absolutes. They arise from wounded states, and wounded states do not see the whole picture. They see through the color of the wound. Conscious co-creation begins when you stop giving wounded states the authority to write your identity. You can say, "Something did not work today," without saying, "Nothing ever works for me." You can say, "This person left," without saying, "Everyone leaves me." You can say, "I am afraid about money," without saying, "Money never stays." You can say, "I feel overwhelmed tonight," without saying, "I cannot handle my life." This is not merely linguistic, it is psychic hygiene. It is the act of cleaning the inner temple before entering sleep. If this message is helping you observe the words you repeat to yourself, like this video now. Let it be a small sign that you are ready to speak to your unconscious with more tenderness and responsibility. Let us look now at love. Many women fall asleep repeating sentences about being unloved. Sometimes they do not say them aloud, but the body hears them anyway. A message was not answered. A partner felt distant. Someone misunderstood them. A relationship ended, or old loneliness returned. Then the mind begins to build a familiar story. I am not chosen. No one stays. I am too much. I will never be loved in the way I need. If a woman carries these sentences into sleep again and again, the unconscious begins to expect abandonment. The next day, she may become hypervigilant. She may read small silences as rejection. She may feel anxious in love, not because love is absent, but because the old sentence has become the lens through which love is interpreted. This is why the bedtime sentence must be changed, not into fantasy, but into consciousness. Instead of, I will never be loved, try, I am learning to recognize love that is present, reciprocal, and safe for my soul. Instead of, everyone leaves, try, I can remain with myself, even when someone else cannot stay. Instead of, I am too much, try, my depth needs spaces where it can be met with maturity. These sentences do not guarantee a relationship. They do something deeper. They return you to yourself. They prevent the wound from becoming the narrator of your entire love life. The same is true with money. A woman may fall asleep saying, money never stays with me, and believe she is simply describing reality. Perhaps she has lived difficult financial patterns. Perhaps money arrived and disappeared. Perhaps her family carried scarcity, debt, instability, fear, or shame around prosperity. Perhaps she learned that wanting more was selfish, that receiving was unsafe, that abundance belonged to other people. But when she repeats, money never stays, she may unknowingly strengthen an identity of financial fragility. The sentence does not teach responsibility. It teaches helplessness. A more conscious sentence might be, I am learning to build a safer and more respectful relationship with money. This does not deny the problem. It introduces agency. It tells the unconscious that money is not only danger, disappearance, or guilt. It can become relationship, responsibility, rhythm, attention, and maturity. The psyche responds differently when agency returns. A woman who says, I am learning, opens a door. The sentence does not demand perfection tonight. It does not pretend the bank account changed in an instant. It invites the unconscious to participate in a new movement. This is often the missing element in negative thought. Movement. A negative belief freezes the soul. A conscious phrase creates direction. When you say, my life is too difficult, the body hears a closed world. When you say, this season is difficult, and I am learning how to move through it with more support, the psyche hears a path. It may be a narrow path, but it is a path. The unconscious needs images of movement. Without them, anxiety becomes a room without doors. This is why your words matter before sleep. They build inner images. The unconscious does not think only in logic. It thinks in images, symbols, associations, memories, sensations. When you repeat a sentence, you are not only communicating information, you are planting an image. Nothing works for me plants an image of a closed life. I can take one conscious step tomorrow, plants an image of movement. Everyone leaves me, plants an image of abandonment. I can remain with myself, plants an image of inner companionship. The image matters. A woman who falls asleep with the image of collapse may wake up under its influence. A woman who falls asleep with the image of one possible step may wake with slightly more access to choice. Do not underestimate slight changes. The psyche often heals through small, repeated shifts. A single conscious sentence may not transform your life overnight, but a sentence repeated with sincerity, night after night, begins to soften the old grooves. It interrupts the ancient spell of fear. It gives the unconscious a new rhythm. It teaches the body that the night can be a place of repair, not only a place where anxiety rehearses disaster. Now let us speak of the shadow. The negative sentences you repeat before sleep often come from shadow material. They carry emotions you have pushed away during the day. If you were angry but did not admit it, the anger may return as harsh self-talk. If you were afraid but tried to appear strong, the fear may return as catastrophic thinking. If you were lonely but told yourself you did not care, the loneliness may return as the sentence, no one loves me. The shadow speaks at night because the persona is tired. During the day, the persona performs. It answers messages, smiles, produces, organizes, behaves, adapts, fulfills roles. At night, the mask loosens. The unprocessed material rises. If you do not meet it consciously, it may speak in distorted form. A sentence like, "I hate my life," may not mean that you truly hate your entire life. It may mean that a part of your life is suffocating. A sentence like, "I cannot take this anymore," may not mean that you have no strength left at all. It may mean that one part of you has been carrying more than it should. A sentence like, "Nothing matters," may not be ultimate truth. It may be grief asking to be heard. The task is to translate shadow language into conscious language. When the shadow says, "I hate everything," consciousness might answer, "Something in my life needs attention, and I am willing to listen." When the shadow says, "I cannot take this anymore," consciousness might answer, "A part of me is exhausted, and I need to care for that part instead of silencing it." When the shadow says, "No one cares," consciousness might answer, "I feel unseen tonight, and I can begin by not abandoning myself." This is not weakness. This is inner leadership. The adult self must become capable of hearing the frightened inner voice without letting it govern the entire night. It must be kind enough to listen and strong enough to guide. If the inner child says, "We are not safe," the adult self does not need to respond with denial. It can say, "I know this feels unsafe, but right now we are in bed. We are breathing. We do not need to solve everything in this moment." A simple sentence like that can calm the body more than an exaggerated affirmation, because the body trusts what feels true. Before sleep, choose phrases your body can actually receive. If you choose words that are too far from your emotional state, they may become another conflict. The goal is not to leap from despair to ecstasy. The goal is to move from unconscious fear to conscious care. If the day was painful, do not say, "Everything is wonderful." Say, "This was painful, and I am still worthy of rest." If you feel afraid, do not say, "I have no fear." Say, "Fear is here, but it does not need to rule my dreams." If you feel alone, do not say, "I am surrounded by love," unless the body can receive it. Say, "Tonight I will not abandon myself." That may be enough. A phrase that is believable has more power than a phrase that sounds impressive. The unconscious does not need poetry. It needs sincerity. This is where conscious co-creation becomes mature. It stops being a performance of positivity and becomes a disciplined tenderness toward the inner world. You are not trying to manipulate life. You are learning to participate in it from a deeper center. Participation is important. Some people use spiritual language to avoid action. They repeat affirmations but do not change habits. They speak of abundance while avoiding responsibility. They speak of love while choosing the same unavailable people. They speak of healing while refusing to tell the truth. This is not conscious co-creation. This is fantasy. True co-creation includes speech, emotion, body, choice, and action. The bedtime phrase prepares the inner field. The next day, you must live one step in the direction of that phrase. If you say, "I am building a safer relationship with money," then tomorrow you may look honestly at one account, one payment, one pattern, one decision. If you say, "I am learning to choose reciprocal love," then tomorrow you may stop chasing a person who only gives confusion. If you say, "I do not need to live the pain before it happens," then tomorrow you may interrupt one anxious spiral before it becomes your entire day. The sentence is a seed. Action is the water. Consciousness is the light. Together, they begin to reshape the inner world. Now I want you to think about the phrase you most often take to bed. Not the phrase you would like to say, the real one. The sentence that appears when the lights are off and no one is watching. Maybe it is about love. Maybe it is about money. Maybe it is about your body, your age, your children, your future, your worth, your loneliness, your fear that something bad is always waiting. Do not judge the sentence immediately. Write it down. Look at it as if it were a dream. Ask where it came from, whose voice it resembles, what wound it protects, what future it keeps rehearsing. Then ask how to translate it. A conscious phrase should do three things. It should acknowledge what is real, soften the grip of fear, and open a possible direction. If it only acknowledges pain, it may deepen despair. If it only opens possibility without honoring pain, it may feel false. The healing sentence holds both. I feel afraid tonight, and I can rest without solving the entire future. I feel lonely, and I can return to myself with tenderness. I made mistakes today, and I can learn without attacking myself. I do not know what will happen, but I can meet tomorrow one step at a time. My body is tired, and I give it permission to rest. My heart is hurting, and I do not need to turn this pain into a prophecy. These phrases are not meant to hypnotize you into false comfort. They are meant to interrupt the unconscious habit of treating fear as truth. Fear is an emotion. It is not always a vision. Anxiety often speaks as if it can predict the future. It cannot. It can imagine. It can prepare. It can warn. Sometimes it may notice real danger, but often it repeats old danger in a new room. It takes a memory and dresses it as intuition. This is why discernment matters. If your body says, something is wrong, listen. But listening is not the same as believing every catastrophic story. Listening means becoming present enough to ask whether the signal belongs to this moment or to an older wound. Before sleep, when the mind is tired, old wounds can sound very convincing. Do not let exhaustion choose your theology. Do not let a difficult day define the meaning of your life. Do not let one moment of fear become the sentence your unconscious carries through the night. Choose with more care. You may not be able to control every thought that appears, but you can choose the sentence you consciously repeat. You can place a wiser word at the threshold. You can tell the frightened parts of yourself that they have been heard, but they do not have to lead the entire inner world. This is the work of becoming conscious, and it is especially important for the woman who has lived waiting for tragedy. Some women do not rest because a part of them believes rest is dangerous. If they relax, something bad might happen. If they feel hope, disappointment may punish them. If they trust life for a moment, life may betray them. So they stay tense. They rehearse loss. They imagine disaster. They think this vigilance is protection, but it is also a slow theft of peace. If this is you, do not shame yourself. This pattern may have been born from real instability. Perhaps life once surprised you with pain. Perhaps you learned early that calm could be interrupted. Perhaps the body decided that constant anticipation was the safest way to survive. But now, before sleep, you can begin to teach the nervous system another truth. You can say, I do not need to remain tense in order to be protected. You can say, rest is not irresponsibility. You can say, I can meet tomorrow better if I allow myself to sleep tonight. You can say, I am allowed to put the day down. These sentences matter because they speak directly to the body. The body that has lived waiting for tragedy needs permission to release its watch. Not forever, not perfectly. Perhaps only for tonight. Perhaps only for 10 minutes. But even 10 minutes of real permission can become the beginning of a new inner relationship. The psyche learns through repetition. Night after night, the new phrase becomes familiar. At first, the old voice may resist. It may say, this is foolish. You know something bad can happen. You know life is difficult. You know people leave. You know money is uncertain. Do not argue endlessly with that voice. It has reasons. It has history. Instead, answer with steadiness. Yes, difficult things can happen. And still, I do not need to suffer every possible future tonight. This is a mature sentence. It does not deny reality. It refuses unnecessary suffering. There is wisdom in refusing to live the pain before it arrives. Many women believe that worry proves love. They worry about their children and call it devotion. They worry about money and call it responsibility. They worry about relationships and call it care. But worry, when it becomes chronic, does not become love. It becomes a ritual of fear. Love may ask for action, attention, planning, repair, and presence. It does not ask you to destroy your body every night in the name of devotion. Before sleep, ask yourself whether your worry is asking for an action or only repeating itself. If an action is needed and possible, write it down for tomorrow. If no action can be taken tonight, Release the rehearsal. Tell the psyche, this has been noted. We will return to it with consciousness when the body has rested. The unconscious benefits from closure, not final answers. Closure. A small ritual can help. Place a notebook beside the bed. Before lying down fully, write 3 lines. The first line names what is still heavy. The second line names what can wait until tomorrow. The third line gives the unconscious a wiser phrase to carry into sleep. For example, I am worried about money. Tomorrow, I will look at one practical step. Tonight, I am learning to rest without confusing fear with solution. Or, I feel sad about love. Tomorrow, I can choose one act of self-respect. Tonight, I will not turn this pain into proof that I am unlovable. Or, I feel overwhelmed by everything I did not finish. Tomorrow, I can begin with one priority. Tonight, my worth does not depend on completing the whole world. This is simple, but simplicity repeated becomes structure, and structure calms the unconscious. The unconscious is like a vast sea. If you throw fear into it every night, the waters become stormy. If you give it a symbol of order, it begins to respond. A notebook, a phrase, a hand on the heart, a few slow breaths, a moment of gratitude that does not deny pain. These small gestures tell the psyche that the day has ended. The body can enter night without carrying the entire unfinished world. This is sacred, not because it is dramatic, because it is repeated with reverence. A woman changes her life not only through great decisions, but through the daily atmosphere she creates around her own soul. The way she wakes, the way she speaks to herself, the way she ends the day, the way she responds to fear, the way she interrupts inherited sentences before they become destiny. There is no need to become perfect in this practice. Some nights you will forget. Some nights the fear will be strong. Some nights you will fall asleep inside old thoughts. Do not use this as another reason to attack yourself. The next night, return. Consciousness is not built through harshness. It is built through faithful return. The unconscious trusts what returns. Return to the sentence. Return to the body. Return to the truth that pain can be acknowledged without being worshipped. Return to the possibility that your voice can become a place of safety. Now let us choose some phrases together. When the old voice says, "Nothing works for me," you might answer, "Some things have been difficult, but my story is not finished." When it says, "I am always abandoned," you might answer, "I can stay with myself while I learn to choose people who can meet me." When it says, "I will never have enough," you might answer, "I am learning to create, receive, organize, and respect abundance." When it says, "I am too late," you might answer, "My life can still open in ways I have not yet imagined." When it says, "I cannot trust anyone," you might answer, "I am learning discernment, not closing my heart to all of life." When it says, "I ruined everything," you might answer, "I can take responsibility without turning one mistake into my identity." When it says, "Something bad is coming," you might answer, "Fear is present, but I do not need to live every possible pain tonight." When it says, "I am exhausted," you might answer, "My exhaustion is real, and rest is allowed." Choose only one. Do not overwhelm the psyche with too many words. One phrase repeated with presence is better than 10 phrases spoken mechanically. Place your hand on your chest or your abdomen if that feels natural. Let the body hear the sentence slowly. You are not trying to convince the mind by force. You are offering the unconscious another rhythm. The phrase must become embodied. Let it be spoken as if you were speaking to a frightened child within you. Not with false excitement, not with pressure, with quiet authority. This is the tone the unconscious trusts. The old negative phrase may return after a few seconds. That is all right. You are not failing. You are witnessing the old groove. Gently return to the new phrase. Each return matters. Each return is a small act of inner leadership. Each return says, "The wound may speak, but it will not be the only voice in this room." This is how the inner world changes. Not by silencing everything dark, by giving consciousness a stronger place to stand. Before we close, think of one woman who needs to change the way she speaks to herself before sleep. A woman who carries fear into bed, who repeats old wounds in the dark, who believes every anxious thought is a prophecy. Send this video to her. Sometimes, a woman does not need more advice. She needs a sentence that helps her return to herself. For the next 7 nights, practice this. Before sleeping, write down the negative sentence that wants to follow you into the night. Then translate it into a conscious co-creation phrase. Make it honest. Make it believable. Make it kind enough for the body to receive and strong enough to open a new direction. Then repeat it slowly, not as magic, as a new relationship with your unconscious. You are not commanding life to obey you. You are teaching your psyche not to keep obeying fear. That is the difference. Now, write in the comments the city where you are watching from and tell me if this message made sense to you. What is one sentence you need to stop repeating before sleep? And what conscious phrase will you choose in its place tonight? If this reflection spoke to your soul, like this video and subscribe to the channel. Here, we continue exploring the feminine psyche, anxiety, the shadow, and the journey back to yourself. Never take the sentence, "Nothing works for me," into sleep as if it were the final truth of your life. Do not give the night only your fear. Give it your honesty. Give it your tenderness. Give it a phrase that opens space. A difficult day does not define your whole story. A painful emotion does not have to become your identity. An anxious thought does not deserve to become a prophecy. Before sleep, your soul is listening. Speak to it as someone you are learning to love. And little by little, the woman who once fell asleep inside fear begins to enter the night with more consciousness, more softness, and more authority over the inner world she is creating. I see you in my next video.